I just want to start and say the book is brilliant and moving and beautiful, and we are so excited to highlight you on the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes. I feel like, we have a lot of books on the podcast that we love, but then there are those books that are just so special, and I feel like I want to just pick it up and read it again, and it feels like a warm hug. And this book it's all of that. It is absolutely beautiful and amazing, and it really just is wonderful. I think we should also maybe just start with a little bit of love for our agent, because I do believe we all have the same agent.
That's right. Yes, we love Charlotte.
Right?
That is funny.
Yeah. We're all Charlotte's clients. Yes, all in Charlotte's web. So we definitely should give some shout out love to Charlotte Wenger. We love her. Thanks, Charlotte. Boop, boop. Fantastic. Okay, so Donna, we're going to start with you. Like we said,
Thank you.
Wow. This book is really special. Where did you get the idea to write this story?
I was thinking, I think it was back in 2016. Can you hear me okay? These headphones are. Back in 2016, I work as a child psychologist, and I've seen kids being bullied throughout the years. But around then, I was just seeing like this cluster, and a few of the kids were like really breaking my heart. I had just gotten into writing picture book biographies and also kind of including some of my psychology background. So I got this idea, I'm going to write about somebody who made a difference for kids, who lifted them up. And I have no idea why or how, because I didn't grow up with Mr. Rogers. He was he started at the tail end of my kid life. And he popped into my head. I don't remember if I did a Google search, but all I know is he popped into my head. And I did a little bit of research, got really excited, found out there were very few books about him. I think there was 1 or 2 picture books. It was before Tom Hanks and all of that. And then there was so much serendipity, because I read his childhood, and I want to write about kids who were inspired. And I find out that he not only was lonely and sick, but he was also bullied. So my first sign that like the stars are lining up, write this book. And then I start really digging, and find out he studied with a lot of the psychologists I studied with, not with, but studied about, because he was before me. And I was like, wow, this is kind of the work I do. And the kind of serendipity that just kept coming was sort of like I had to write a book about him. And then I just kind of got a little bit obsessed with, reading about him and watching his videos. And the initial title for the story was actually Mr. Rogers' Gift of Music. Because my mother had given me a gift of music. She loved music and always turned to it. But a few of my friends said, change it to the whole neighborhood theme. And it sort of took a life of its own, went through a lot of revisions. And here we are. It's back to that original title.
Well, it is beautiful.
And
I did grow up with Mr. Rogers. And so I think it makes it even more powerful for me, because I think he has touched more hearts than I don't think we can even count how many hearts he has touched.
It's so incredible.
How many people he has helped.
There was one article I read where kids called him my Mr. Rogers. They didn't call him Mr. Rogers. They called him my Mr. Rogers because he had such a personal connection.
Yes. I mean, this is such a beautiful book. And part of that is the art. Amanda, what was it about this project that made you want to work on it?
Well, I was also a child of Mr. Rogers. I watched him religiously every day. I want to say it was on at 6:30 a.m. or 6 a.m. or something. It was as I was getting ready for school, I'm pretty sure. Or it was right after school. But anyway, every day he was my guy. And so, of course, when this came into my email, the offer to do this book, there was nothing in me that would have said no, even if, I don't know, I even have a candle with his face on it that I light whenever I sit down to write for children, because I kind of want to anchor my stories in his worldview, or sort of filter them through like what he would find useful and helpful to children. And this is long before this book even came to my came to my desk.
That's more than serendipity.
Yeah, I almost wonder if it was witchcraft that brought this. Because
the universe was all working together.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So, Donna, I could be wrong with this, but from what I understand, this book had quite a journey to publication. There were a few different versions, I think, or you don't have to get into all of it, but can you just give us a little bit about the writing process?
Yeah, so the writing
story?
process was, initially I just read some articles, read a few books, and it was purchased, and I, of course, watched a lot of the episodes, a couple videos here and there, and I didn't have to do a whole lot of research. The story just came to me. You know, the first line of the book was originally like this little boy looking out his window and seeing his neighbors play, and then at the end he creates his neighborhood, and it was originally called Fred's Beautiful Neighborhood, and it was bought by Page Street. Mm-hmm. And then down the road, the book kind of went through a journey, and they asked for a new kind of vision for it. And I came up with Mr. Rogers sweaters and all different angles to tell the same story. I was very married to the story, and a few of the spreads luckily have remained the same. And Amanda did amazing work with creating the scenes. So I was really married to a couple of the scenes, and I dug deeper. I watched a video with Karen Herman. She did the series of interviews with him, and at one point, Frederick described his music as his first love and one of his gifts for kids, and that was it. I just knew I'm going right deep into the music. They loved the idea, and here we are. So, yeah,
I love it.
I have goosebumps. Woo, knowing
yes,
that.
I wrote
that
it.
moment.
I just have to say,
wonderful.
the way, Amanda, that you illustrated the music, I mean, you're very good at that because you have another book where you do that, right?
Yeah.
Which
My
I
only
think
two
is
published books
gorgeous.
so far are illustrating music. So
It's
They're beautiful.
brilliantly
That you're
done.
so
It's
good at it.
so beautifully done. So
this book I wanted to make sure was, I feel like if I was a musician or if I was in a band or something, I would be in those bands where the next album that comes out doesn't sound anything like the previous album, because I really, I wanted to sort of level up the music in this book compared to the last one. I really loved the way Kalita and the Most Beautiful Song came out, but I was craving a little more like mixed media look. So I did a lot of experimenting before I settled on the style of the music for this one. That's why it's a lot different from the previous book. Yeah.
we love it.
It's stunning.
So stunning.
It's so stunning. It really is.
We should maybe talk about a little more about that.
So, yeah. Can you give us a look into your process
for
a
this
little
book,
bit?
I wanted to make sure, well, obviously I had to make things accurate. I had to make sure the set looked right and the, like the puppets and all that kind of stuff. So accuracy was really important. So I did a lot of, like a big hunt for reference and watched a lot of my old favorite episodes, watched some from before I was even born, watched some from after I grew out of Mr. Rogers. Not that you ever really do, but, high school, I didn't really make time for him.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure I saw him at all different ages. And I gathered what I could find of his little childhood photos, which are maybe 5 or 6 that I could find online. It's pretty hard to find him as a child. So anyway, it was a lot of reference gathering. And then when it comes to the childhood scenes, I had to sort of create a character using the photos that I could find, and adjust his poses for the different scenes. For the older Mr. Rogers, I could usually find him doing whatever I needed him to do for a particular scene, like in the right pose. And then after gathering reference and sketching him out, after gathering reference, I did a lot of like blind studies where you kind of like just look at the screen and not your notebook as you're sketching, so you can really get a feel for the gestures and the facial features and stuff. And then some semi-blind where I would sort of a little bit look at my sketchbook and really try not to stare too much at my sketchbook as I was drawing. And I felt like that was what really got me able to draw his likeness. I think even some of the initial sketches are still in the book. Like they made it all the way through to the final images. Like I know the opening spread, everything but his face was just a blind gesture drawing, I'm pretty sure. So I find those super helpful. And then,
Wow.
Yeah, and then I spent a lot of time figuring out the music, like I said, and then it was just a matter of sketching the scenes. I think we had one round of edits for the initial sketches, and then when I passed in the finals, there was one kind of small round of edits after that. So that's how.
Your art is so beautiful. You capture the emotion so well.
Thank you.
Yes. And it's the colors. I feel like your use of color, those moments when he's feeling sad and it's the grays, and then that one page spread where he's a little boy at the piano and it's gray, and then the music kind of flows across the page to the other side when he's grown and it's colorful. I mean, talk about art telling a story. It's remarkable.
We love
really,
it.
really beautiful.
We love it.
Donna.
Yeah.
Donna, the words are so beautiful.
Thank you.
So beautiful. Do you have a specific writing schedule? Do you write every day, or is it just
kind of
whenever you're
depends on
inspired?
the season. In the winter, I tend to write much more often. And then if I'm in a project, I get so immersed and I write 8 days a week. So it really depends. If I'm into something, I'll just keep going. But in between projects, I could take a few weeks off and just kind of let things kind of brew that are kind of floating in my mind.
I love
With
that.
Fred, I was very immersed.
That's
With Fred, I was
I love
immersed.
that
I was
too.
constantly watching videos of him, and the more I kind of felt like I needed that to get to his emotions, because it was so hard to write in words who he was and what he did. His message was so powerful; it was beyond words. So,
Agreed.
You captured
Thank you.
it.
So when you
beautifully.
are, it sounds like you weren't. It sounds like you weren't stuck on this story, but when you're stuck on other stories, what do you do?
most likely, I call one of my critique partners, who are saints. It's incredible; they're always there for me. And I also have a brainstorm partner, and we range like maybe once a month. We try to talk, and we just brainstorm ideas back and forth. I also walk in nature. I love walking in nature. Being with my kids, I love being around children and getting that inspiration. Sometimes I'll just go to the library and watch kids in the library, which I make believe I'm not really watching, but I like to see how they respond to books.
Good idea. I should try that.
In a very
Yes.
nice way. Yeah. I love that brainstorm partner that you do that once a month.
It's
That
very
sounds
powerful.
Wonderful.
That's like a really good idea.
It's excellent. I highly recommend.
Right. Start doing that.
Right. Kirsty, let's
Okay.
make a schedule for that.
Already on the calendar.
We're going to fit that in. Everything else that's happening. It's important. It's
So,
important.
Amanda, do you draw or paint or sketch every day?
I would say
What's the schedule like?
I do something every day related to my freelance career. I've had 2 kids over the last 4 years, so one of them's always home with me until like next week. They both start daycare, and I get like a good 4-hour stretch every day. But now I have about 2 to 4 hours to work every day, pretty much, when she's sleeping, when the little one's sleeping, and that's kind of how it's been for like 4 years. So it's tough. I don't necessarily get to draw every day, but I'm doing something related to my career every day, whether it's like social media, updating social media, or writing, or sketching, or actually working on a paid project. Pet portraits is something else I do with my days. So yeah, I'd say almost every day.
Oh, fun.
Probably.
Oh, that's cool.
So fun.
That's great. And reading,
Tons,
I'm sure
yeah.
you read to your little ones. And reading picture books is always, that's
totally.
part of the job too, right? We need to read those books in order to
Right.
know
It's really interesting
know the
to
market.
see which
So
ones
that's
which
great.
books
What would
my
you
son gravitates towards. It's
ahead.
not what I would think. It's not like the most mass market books or anything.
Really?
He likes some odd ones. So it gives me hope, because I feel like the stories I want to tell are a little odd too.
I was going to say, there's hope that there's a
for real.
kid for every book, right? Every book
Yep.
will find a child. What would you say is the hardest part for you when you're illustrating a project? You've done your own book. You were the author illustrator for your first book, and now illustrator only for this one, and it's nonfiction.
Very
So
different.
it's
I actually
very
really-
different, right? What would you say is the hardest
There's
part?
nothing about nonfiction that's hard for me. I do really enjoy the hunt for reference, but it is hard to keep yourself from getting stuck there and just gathering reference and not actually sitting down and making the project. But I think the hardest part for this particular project for me was just finding the time to make sure the illustrations were looking as good as I could make them. Someday I'll stop complaining about not having enough time. Because today is not the day.
It's hard. You've got 2 little ones.
It used to be.
We know what that's like.
The hardest part was really like finding my voice. I was so obsessed with making sure I was making stuff that was different from other people and unique. But now I just don't have time to worry about that. I just make the thing. I just, I know I like collage.
It's working. It's working.
Okay, good. I know I like collage. I know I like the mixed media look. I know I really like turn of the century illustration. And I make stuff traditionally, bring it into Procreate, and that's like the recipe. And I just don't have time to think about anything else. So whatever comes out now.
Nice.
Nice.
I love it. Thanks.
It's so beautiful.
Beautiful.
It's just, I can't get over it. I just want to keep reading it over and over again. And I think, what I think is really wonderful about this story is, Donna, you were saying like at the time when you started writing it, there wasn't a lot of Mr. Rogers books in the market. And now I think there might be 2, 3 other books besides this one. But this one is very different than those books. And I think that this is a really great example of how you can write about the same topic or even the same person, but still have a fresh approach.
There's room in the market.
Is that something
for
that
everyone's ideas?
Yeah. I think that was the best.
Sorry, Kim.
That was the biggest lesson for me, to just find a unique angle, like something. And for Fred, like for him, he talked many times about music was essential. Like he felt very much like that was the essence of who he was and how he expressed himself. So for me to find that heart, the story then just took a life in a very different direction. It wasn't about his program as much as it was about him. It became much more personal. So that's like when I think of like my writing journey, that's the thing I learned, is to find something unique and a different angle in telling the story.
And I think, like you were saying, it can be hard to find at first. Yeah, but the digging and it's there. You just gotta find it. That moment will come. It's beautiful. And I think the fact that you focused on his music also hits upon another layer for kids, because it's not just about Mr. Rogers. It's also about the power of music. And, picture books with heart and layers, I mean, those are winners. Those get knocked out of the park. And did this book get a starred review, correct?
It did.
Book list?
Amazing. Congrats.
Congratulations. That's excellent. I can't wait to get
surprised.
A copy of my own and have this. I'm not surprised either. I'm not surprised either. I think there's probably more of that to come.
It's just like a perfect
it's really, really beautiful.
Words and art in this book.
I want Amanda to illustrate any book I get published.
Amanda,
I would love to illustrate your books, Donna.
Me too.
I just really respect your background in child psychology, and I feel like you know how to make useful books for kids.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Useful and lovely.
Yeah, exactly.
And engaging.
Informative.
Yes, so much so. And Amanda, your likeness, the way that you drew him, really feels like we're looking at the TV screen almost. Like it feels like it's really him on that page. And I feel like that can be really hard for an illustrator to do when you're drawing someone that's a real person, right? I mean, you have to kind of get close to what they look like, but yet your own style. And I can only imagine that that's a little challenging. Yeah. But there's certain angles you've taken in the book, perspectives that I feel are so smart.
Thank you.
And well done.
I don't know if it's because I do portraits all the time. They're mostly animals, but I think I'm just used to looking at facial features and symmetry, or not symmetry, but like the way they relate to each other, the distance between eyes and nose and mouth. But I did do a lot of studies of him, so I think I kind of got it into my hand, like what he looks like after a while. Although he changed over the years. So the older version of him was a little tougher.
Would you say drawing?
Oh, the older version.
Yeah, I feel like.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know why. I guess the dimensions changed, or wrinkles or something. I don't know.
As we age, we have to be okay with these
Yeah,
things.
exactly. But it's
I
hard to know what to
know.
include and what not to when it comes to like different lines in his face. I don't know. That part I remember struggling with his older features.
It doesn't
Well, you did a
show.
fabulous job.
So
What's
would you
that?
say drawing, you did. And you draw pictures, you draw animals, and in this book you have lots of humans to draw. Would you say drawing people is harder, or
People
drawing
is harder
animals
because
is harder?
they're going to see it, and people who
People?
know them are going to see it. But animals, they don't care.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. We did an interview earlier today, and with Bob Shea, and he was saying that the initial book was about an animal, and he decided the editor and the art director were like, we really think these should be humans. And he was like, no,
So much
I don't want to
harder.
draw humans.
Yeah.
They're too hard.
Yeah.
They're so much harder.
It was also a struggle.
but he
to kind of
did,
pick-
so
I didn't have reference really for the children, but I had reference for him. So I feel like in some pages I'm like, ooh, he looks really defined. The children look a little more blobby, but I don't know. I hope it's okay.
No,
Not
it
at
turned out great. It turned out great.
No,
So we
really
have
did.
one more question for both of you, and we're going to start with you, Amanda. When someone reads Mr. Rogers' Gift of Music, what do you hope they feel or learn?
I hope they're inspired to take their feelings and turn them into art, whatever that form of art is. It doesn't have to be music, but that's great. When I was a kid, I would write. When I learned how to write, I would write poetry, and I would write my words down in my diary. I still have a lot of diaries from back when I was a kid. But that's how I got my feelings out, and I felt like that was so helpful. So whatever that form of art is for kids, I hope that they read this and can connect with that. Like, oh, maybe I will use my feelings to make music or draw my anger or, paint my...
I love that. I think it will. I'm sure
hope
of
so.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. How about you, Donna? When someone reads this book, what do you hope they feel or
I
learn?
have a few things. One was what Amanda just mentioned. The other was I hope that they'll feel this warmth that comes through in Mr. Rogers and the way Amanda illustrated him. Because I think a lot of kids, they measure their worth by their accomplishments. And I like the idea of like, you're worthwhile for who you are. And also that your feelings matter, and it doesn't matter what feelings, because I think even adults, we're so uncomfortable with negative feelings. Like, what do you do if you're so angry? And finding a creative way to express that, to me, is the epitome of, existence in a way.
Yep.
That's what we all do. And then also the whole idea of kindness and mutual understanding, and that everybody's important. And I love the way that Amanda portrayed so many different kinds of kids in the book. And that was my image. It's just like every kind of child you could think of, every culture, every kind of child that is lonely or needs this kind of story. So it's a lot, but that's my hope.
Absolutely. Well, but the book is mighty, so I think it will accomplish all of those things.
Agreed.
It really is. I know like I said before, we love picture books. There's so many great ones out there, and then there are those that will just
Stay in our hearts.
sit with you for long after you're done with the book. So well done. I mean, I know it was a journey for the story, but it was worth it.
Totally worth it.
Absolutely.
So
Yes,
thank you so
yes.
much.